Welcome back to the Print on Demand cast. On today's episode, we talk about the secrets to selling wall art online. Let's get into it.
Radical! Welcome to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. Each week, join the gnarly Travis and Josiah as they provide insight into the print on demand industry and equip you with the totally tubular tools, advice, and strategies you need to achieve success and hopefully have a few laughs along the way. Now on to this week's Totally Tubular show.
Welcome back once again to the Print on Demand cast. It is great to be here with all of you, giving you new content, a brand new episode. Myself and Travis Ross joining me from Make Your Mark Design. Travis, I would say it's been a while since I've seen you, but we literally saw each other yesterday getting back from a really fun weekend in Orlando at PodFest, which is a podcasting convention for those that don't know, and lots of cool things learned, lots of strategies, tips, and a new platform maybe or hosting site that we found. But all of you listening don't really care about that because it's not really going to affect you that much. It's really just our side and nerding out on the specifics of podcasting. So, but here we are, and we're recording a day later. How was your night? I know for me, it was like 9 o'clock, and I was like, I'm exhausted right now. I'm so freaking tired because I was still 2 hours ahead. So how was the last 12 hours of your life?
It was fan-frickin-tastic because I got home. And so for longtime listeners, you know, I'm a huge Kansas City Chiefs fan. Love them or hate them. You got to admit, they're pretty dang good. And they weren't for most of my life. So I'm just living it up with the rest of Chiefs Kingdom, enjoying this kind of, time in history where they're really good. And last night, so when we're at the airport, you know this because you're sitting on the plane with me, like the game is happening and we could have been watching it live on, Southwest
TV.
Yeah. Southwest has live TV. And so we're watching movies and you're very, very kind to not, spoil anything.
I'm checking the game as it's happening because I'm hoping that Super Bowl Sunday, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce are cuddling Taylor Swift on a couch somewhere. But instead we'll be treated to gratuitous shots of Taylor Swift and I'll want to pluck my eyes out. But anyway,
you're just jealous.
You're watching movies.
You're jealous because your Bills didn't win. And I understand that. And we should have talked about that last week, but I let that go. So you're welcome. Anyway, we're walking through the airport after we finally get off the thing off the airplane. And I got my AirPods in, and I'm like listening to a podcast and I'm keeping my head down because we're walking past bars in the concourse or in the terminal that are like showing the game. And like, I look up and I see the game and I immediately just head down, right down to the baggage claim. We got our stuff. We got in the car with my wife, who took us to our house. You got in the car, went home. We went in. I grabbed a beer, sat on the couch, turned the game on. And if you probably know by now, Chiefs beat the Ravens, and I was elated. Both my wife and I, we were just elated to go back to the Super Bowl, considering what a bad offensive showing the Chiefs have had all year. So I know this isn't a sports podcast, but that was, you asked me, you said, what did I do for the last hours?
And then it didn't seem like their offensive showing was that great either on the game, just based on the score alone. It was pretty.
Ravens are great.
Yeah.
They really are.
It was crazy. So and then I watched the Lions-Niners game. I was really pulling for Detroit. I don't know what the hell happened for them to blow that big of a comeback. But I've never really been a huge Niners fan, probably going back to Jimmy Garoppolo. There's really no reason that I dislike them. But I think most of America is just hoping both teams lose. And then the designated fan base of those two teams are probably loving it. But literally, I saw a thing on Facebook like the Super Bowl no one wanted. And it was the Chiefs and the Niners. So who knows what's going to happen. Any given Sunday, and I think the Niners owe the Chiefs for the last time they met in the Super Bowl. So who knows what's going to happen? But it always makes for a great story, and the best story always wins. So Here we are. We're talking about this week, wall art, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. Secrets to selling wall art, what you need to know about it. Have you considered it? If you haven't, stay tuned. But before we get there, of course, we are going to go to everyone's favorite segment of the week, the weekly dad joke.
Time for the weekly dad joke.
All right, so as you guys know, Travis just said we got home yesterday. He was watching the game. I was making a 30-minute drive from his house to my house in Loveland, Colorado, and got home. Hadn't seen my wife or my two dogs for 4 days, and excited to get home. I walk in and expecting this grandiose, like, oh my God, welcome home, and the dogs are all freaking out. But then when I got home, my wife was gone, and I didn't understand why. I didn't know where she was. I checked everywhere. It's only a 3-bedroom house, not that many places to lose her. But my dogs aren't barking, which I'd be like, no one was there. But on the countertops of the island we have in our kitchen, there was like cakes and pies and cookies and pastries, like all kinds of desserts. And I was like, man, I can't believe my family deserted me. Yeah. There you go. That's this week's weekly dad joke. However, not too untrue from the joke. My wife has been really into sourdough, and she made sourdough brownies, which are delicious. So those were there. All right. Well, that's this week's weekly dad joke. Use it. Let us know if it works on your friends. If you get a groan or eye roll, it means you're doing it the right way. So before we get into the secrets of selling wall art, we are going to go. It's been a while, I feel like since we've had one of these, but we're going to this week's point of interest.
Well, howdy, partner. Welcome to the point of interest part of the POD cast. So grab your hat and hold on tight, because we got some learning to do.
All right, this week for the point of interest, interesting development, I think, when it comes to e-commerce and shipping solutions. Travis, tell us, what is so interesting about this week's point of interest?
Well, we've actually wanted to have this as our point of interest for several weeks. I kept moving it because for whatever reason we wouldn't have one, or it was that solo episode that I did a couple of weeks ago, et cetera, et cetera. So this is actually a couple of weeks old, but got an email from Amazon about them starting a shipping service for your business, actual ground service. Now, I know it's not new that, everybody probably has seen the Amazon trucks, in their neighborhoods,
right?
Even the new ones that are all electric, which are super cool. You've probably seen them around. So, and obviously they're dropping things off at your house. If you're a Prime member, you've seen them. So that's not necessarily new, but what is new is that they're actually extending it to businesses. So they're not just going to go, pick up at Amazon. That's, they're not just going to only deliver fulfilled by Amazon products. They'll actually come get your stuff and take it wherever you want to go. So they're basically adding a service to their existing shipping infrastructure.
Like the fleets are already out there, right? Like to your point,
right?
Trucks are already there. Yeah. So what's another way that we can utilize
monetize it?
Monetize
exactly.
it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because right now, you like if you're doing FBA, you probably know this. You send stuff in, and then they use their fulfillment trucks or all of their semis and all of that to spread that out across the nation. So if you send in 100 goods or 50 goods or even 10, they're sending it out based on analytical data that they've collected on your product and where it sells best. So they might send 2 here, 1 here, 5 here. And so they already have the semis. They've already got the delivery, vehicles going out every single day and taking those, to the final customers. So this was just kind of a matter of time before they said, hey, we could also pick up, goods from businesses. So they're doing, they're going to come, they're going to come to your warehouse, or I don't know if they're going to do it with houses, like if you're doing it at your house, but they haven't said that, but they are going to come to your warehouse and they'll pick it up. They can deliver they already can do the 2-day thing. But if you're doing merchant fulfilled, they could come and take all 100 orders that day or 1,000 orders that day or 500, whatever, and they're going to get it to the customer in 2 to 5 days. And the cool thing about that, in my mind, is, well, they're the platform I just sold it on.
Right.
And they're going to deliver it. They're not going to be, if they deliver it late, that's on them. I'm not going to get dinged for a late shipment if I'm using Amazon,
Right. Right.
Which is kind of cool. And what they're saying, I haven't seen this. I don't have actual data on it. They're saying that they have competitive prices. So, what does that mean? I don't know, but I think what they're doing is kind of like a DHL or in some cases a UPS model where they'll deliver it to the post office in a sorting center. And then the post office will do what's called the final mile delivery. Because it's the local post office and they'll deliver it on their regular routes. So we'll see how this kind of,
I'm curious to see how it affects, like to your point, UPS or, because again, you and I both know that when we had our facilities, we were just by the bags, UPS stopping by. Here you go. Here's all the orders from today. Here's all the orders that we had, like 6-7 bags at a time. So like people doing that, I wonder what that will do to the business that UPS has, FedEx. Like, I'm curious to see what that dynamic shakes out to be once this seems to be probably a little bit more fleshed out in terms of, what it is they're going to be doing and the prices that they're going to be offering. It could be a very interesting dynamic between what we know to be our ground parcel solutions now and what Amazon's going to bring to the table. Because it seems like they're a detriment to the competition whenever they enter the ring to anything. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. One of the cool things that they announced it's right on their front page. We'll put it in the show notes, but it's shipping.amazon.com. And then it has some other links there, but they're actually going to do pickup and delivery 7 days a week. No weekend delivery fees or residential surcharges. Wow. So obviously they're using the post office for some, but they ain't using the post office to deliver on Sunday because post offices don't.
That's right.
So they are actually going to use their fleet to deliver some of this stuff. And I think that's the cool thing is that they're going to be able to maybe take some of the load. If you've sold in print on demand for a long time, Q4 is crazy when it comes to delivery. So hopefully this helps take some of the load off existing carriers that are already delivering. And that 7 day a week delivery and pickup, mind you, is really, really interesting. Very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So there you go. That's this week's point of interest. Again, shipping.amazon.com. We will have that in the show notes for all of you to check it out. And as things progress, as things develop, we'll be sure to kind of maybe do some follow-ups and see how things are going once we kind of know exactly what they will be doing and if it is congruent to what they said they'll be doing. And then we'll be able to do some investigative journalism and let you know the truth. So we're excited to see where that goes. So for this week, like I said, the main event, secrets to selling wall art. But before we get there, we want to let you guys know that this episode of the Print on Demand cast is sponsored by this episode of the Print on Demand cast. It's sponsored by us. So let's go ahead and run the ad we have for this week's sponsor, shall we?
In a world where businesses everywhere are trying to make print-on-demand sales, one podcast goes above and beyond every week to bring the most POD-specific information there is, all to help save the day every day. Don't succumb to the enemies of your print-on-demand business. Sign up today for the Print on Demand Cast VIP email at printondemandcast.com/VIP. This time, it's for real.
All right. We'd like to thank our sponsors for sponsoring us. But seriously, if you haven't already, check out the VIP list. We'll talk a little bit more about it as we get in even to this main event. And before we leave you guys, we'll give you more information about what that VIP list means, what and the benefits that it has for you. So with that being said, we're going to get into it.
Hey, sorry for the interruption, but we wanted to let you know that this week's episode is brought to you by Spotify for Podcasters. Really cool app. Josiah and I use it for every single show that we bring to you every week. You can edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so you can start creating as soon as you log into the platform. You can easily distribute your podcasts to Spotify and everywhere else the podcasts are heard, just like we do every single week. You can also create video podcasts on Spotify, which is really cool. And of course, you can earn money like I'm doing right now by including ads and even podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free. There's no catch. We really love it. We use it every single week. So we encourage you to go download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. All right, let's get back to the show.
Travis, the main event is Secrets to Selling Wall Art Online. And for some, this might seem a little overwhelming because it's kind of hard to I mean, there's too many choices to be made, I think.
Yeah.
Especially when we're approaching when we're approaching a topic that I guess traditional, air quotes for those not watching on video, traditional items that you think to sell in a print on demand store, you know, t-shirts or mugs, it's just an easier sell. But
yeah,
you know, wall art can be awesome because it's a higher barrier to entry, but it also would then mean higher potential profits. So you know, you used to sell some wall art, and do you still have the posters that you sold when we had the facility? I know there's a lot of like the wall arts that you guys did, but when we get in, so let's get into it here. You know, some of the questions are: what's the best way to sell wall art on print on demand? What should I sell? Where should I sell? Where can I get the art? Posters or framed art? That's a lot of questions, a lot of cues to be aid, to borrow a phrase from our friend Adam. So
I mean, I agree. I think I mean, you know, putting a design on a t-shirt, that's super simple. Putting a design on a mug, yeah, it's super easy because you only have, you know, you have an 11 ounce or a 15 ounce mug. You know, you have a black t-shirt, a white, you know, you're just choosing colors. You know, when you're talking about wall art, there's like a gajillion sizes. And then, you know, is it canvas wrapped? Is it a poster? Is it how thick is that canvas wrap? Is it 1 inch? Is it 1.5 inches? You know, who's selling what? What are the products? You know, it's just, it can really, really become overwhelming really quickly. And and so, but to your point, you know, that means that fewer people will probably do it. Right. I mean, you go to Etsy and you're immediately going to see 1 million of them, but I'll bet you, there's probably more t-shirts than there are wall art sellers
for sure
on Etsy or coffee mug sell. You know what I mean? Because again, it's a higher barrier to entry.
Yeah, and I think also this kind of goes back to a conversation that we have a lot on the show, which is how do you maximize your existing assets, right? Which some of your designs that you're selling, maybe they would look good on a piece of wall art, depending on what it is. But that's another way to kind of think of your existing assets, your existing designs that you have. How can you repurpose them? Just like Amazon with their delivery trucks that they have now, they want to know how to monetize it further. That's what you can do with your existing design. So it's another way that you can do that. So if you sell wall art right now, we would love to hear about your experience, and you can do so. Just respond to our VIP newsletter that we send out. You just heard the ad for it, but let us know what that experience is. And if you don't have the newsletter, just go to printondemandcast.com/VIP, and we'd love to get your ideas and your take on selling wall art. So communicate with us. Let us know your experience, your expertise, and we'd love to relay that information or possibly use what you say, have it, you know, highlighted on the show. On a later episode as well. So there is a little bit of a history, as I alluded to, of us selling wall art, you guys selling wall art with Make Your Mark. Talk about that a little bit and what your experience was, and then we can kind of dive into the specifics and what you took away from that experience of selling wall art online. Yeah,
so I got the idea for selling it really from you and from Uncle Mike. For longtime listeners, Mike Perillo, is we call him Uncle Mike on the show. Mike was doing sublimation wall art, so he would get these. Well, we saw him in Portland. You remember those amazing
like
metal
high
panels?
Gloss finish, and they were mesmerizing. Yes,
yeah. So you could get either a silver one. I mean, at the time, it's probably same today, but you could get a silver metal wall art, or you could get one that was coated with white. And the white, because I mean, if you've ever seen a sublimated mug, you know the colors are outstanding. They're gorgeous. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
And you could go to wall, even with, you know, you have a 16 by 20 press, and maybe the wall art is, you know, 12 by 14 or something like that. It still fits in your press. So you can go like side to side, edge to edge. That's the, and then the other thing that I got from you guys was selling framed wall art. So you would have a frame, you know, maybe it's a 1-inch wooden frame that's been stained and it has like a channel in it. And we've talked about this on the Print on Demand cast before. You would cut out melamine, and you guys were you figured out a way to do it with a DTG machine.
Yeah,
which blew me away.
Yeah, it was an arduous process. It's one of those conversations where you kind of have to, and multiple times I would talk to Jason, because we would have these processes and ideas of building out how to make these signs doable, profitable, quick, efficient. And I would have to ask him, like, okay, but are we a t-shirt print shop, or are we a hardware? You know what I mean? Like, are we a woodworking shop? Because we got to figure out a happy medium, because it's going to take a lot of effort if we do this. Like, it's almost pivoting our whole business model, because the reason that we were so adamant about figuring this process out is because the demand was out there and the profit was there because of that higher barrier to entry. So the motivation to figure it out, realizing how quickly these were selling, was definitely prevalent. But again, it was like, okay, well, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. We still have clients that want t-shirts and mugs. So how do we figure this out? But to your point, it was a wild process, and getting that all dialed in, and then the steps, and which you guys had to kind of learn and further, you know, efficientize, if that's a word, make it more efficient in the process.
Yeah, we efficientized it. Instead of doing DTG, we eventually built jigs and used our UV machine to do it. Which is
huge, yeah.
Which was amazing, because since we had jigs, we could do, I think our size allowed us to do two 12s and then 3 6s across the top.
Yeah.
We had a 14 by 17 that we would just be able to just do one, I think, at a time, maybe a couple more 6s, but you get the idea. But because of that, we could do them all, and we didn't have to like afterwards spray, shellac them or whatever the hell you guys did.
Yeah.
And it made it a lot more time. We efficientized it.
Like that's right. TM, trademark pending, efficientized, coming to a t-shirt near you. So, all right, so let's talk about, you kind of mentioned this, and we mentioned this too. Where should you sell it? That's the first question that you might be asking. Like, where in the world would I sell wall art? Well, first would be Etsy, which is where we predominantly sold wall art. Again, you know, if you're a longtime listener to the show, you know that Etsy, you know, refer to Etsy as kind of like the carefully curated boutique handmade store kind of vibe, where it's like, you know, a lot of home decor is sought after in Etsy, and customizable home decor. So wall art is kind of perfect for the Etsy crowd, because that's where I would start, right? There's other options on this list, but I feel like Etsy would make the most sense to kind of have a proof of concept session on the platform to make sure it's actually going to be viable.
Yeah, and the things we were just talking about that we did were different than what you're going to see. I mean, there's so many different kinds of wall art, everything from like laser engraved, stacked topographical maps, you know, and they have like different layers and somebody's literally painted and glued pieces to make it beautiful, to just a frame. And then there's wood, and they're hand painting things with stencils. And there's all of that. But then there's like the actual print on demand side of it. And so we're talking about, you know, posters, gallery wrapped, kind of those, where the canvas goes around the edges and there's no actual physical frame to it. Yeah. But then there's also some print on demand companies that will put a frame on it. They've got modern frames and kind of traditional frames, et cetera, et cetera. So there's so many and then the other cool thing is, because it's print on demand, you can create your own mat or, what looks like a mat. So you could make a bigger picture, but then you have this kind of framed piece, and we'll talk about some of the ideas that you can get into. But I say all of this because when you are selling on Etsy, or when you go to Etsy and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this, you're going to see a ton of people doing this because Etsy's a huge marketplace and print on demand is print on demand. And there's a lot of people that are doing it because it's a low cost of entry. Even though it is, like we said, higher barrier to entry than like t-shirts or mugs. So if you want to take it to the next level, I really feel like, the other channels that we talk about, Amazon Seller Central, Walmart, Shopify, these places probably don't have as many offerings, or at least you can potentially be found easier on these. Like Amazon, to me, that is the king. That is the king of the jungle. It's the 800-pound gorilla. And so if everybody's coming to do print on demand on Etsy, well, what happens if you do it on Amazon? Right. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend just doing mugs and t-shirts on Amazon unless you have like some really great winners.
Right.
But taking some of these more difficult products to sell on that platform, and then Walmart is still early days for Walmart. So if you're selling it on Amazon, might as well get it sold on Walmart too.
Correct.
Then you take your winners, create a Shopify store, start driving traffic. They're winners, right? You can, there's a lot of things. If you're collecting emails, you can remarket to people. You can you can tag different people that bought more Art Nouveau pieces or more modern art or, whatever it is. And then continue to remarket to those people because that they like that kind of thing. But to your point, I agree. I think starting on Etsy to get your feet wet, because there are so many options and so many things that you have to kind of make decisions on, it might make a lot of sense to just start on Etsy, dial in your process, and then move to some of these other channels. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. I think so. And, the last on this list also, is Shopify, your own third-party site, or, a Shopify equivalent, which again is because there's so much out there. And we've talked about this before. The hard part about Shopify is you have to bring the eyes to your site, and Etsy brings those eyes for you. And so again, use Etsy, Amazon, Walmart, starting with Etsy as a proof of concept. And if you're hitting something that's popping off and it's going really well, maybe consider starting a Shopify store. I'd say the same thing to someone that's like, hey, I'm going to start a novelty t-shirt store on Shopify. I'd be like, why would you do like, it's going to be real hard to cut through the noise. Maybe pivot, start elsewhere. But yeah, I would completely agree. The second question you might be asking, where can I get the art? Well, I mentioned earlier, your existing art, design it yourself, hire a designer, stuff you have designed in the past. Look at, and obviously, a sign that says your design that might say, this shirt belongs to a golf wearer. Well, maybe not that exact design, but the idea of the design. You can change the word shirt, or you can kind of go through and curate which ones actually would look good on a design, or a saying that might look good on a wall sign. We have, there's a sign, we used to have a sign that says prayer changes everything except the toilet paper. That's on you. That's like a bathroom sign. It's just text-based. So you can do stuff like that still and do the funny novelty kind of joke signs. There's a market for that too. But your existing designs can certainly be used. You just have to you might have to be a little bit more selective about which ones, but there's probably a handful that will work that you can at least start with.
Yeah, I love that idea. You're not going to put that saying on a coffee mug or a t-shirt. That is strictly a bathroom sign. That's the only thing that anyone's going to ever buy that on. So designing specifically for the art is one way. And so, if you are a designer, that's a great way for you to kind of use your creativity to come up with, let's just pick a room in the house that, we're going to sell these things in, and we're going to start with the bathroom. Then we're going to go to the kitchen. Then we're going to go to a child's room, and we're going to design specifically for those areas of the house. And that's going to make your creative process a lot easier. You're going to be able you're going to be able to get out more designs, and then if you're not a designer, use that same idea of going to different areas of the house, but then just listen to one of our VA episodes and go hire a VA, a virtual assistant designer, and have them do it. Give them those specific come up with the ideas yourself. You use your creativity to pass along what you think would sell, and then have the VA design it.
Yep. And again, every room of the house, there's got to be something. Start with bathroom, kitchen. My mom has a sign in her kitchen right now that says, "Guess what I made for dinner? Reservations." And it's over her kitchen, like the back door to the porch. She loves that sign because she hates cooking. Mm-hmm. So again, start with the room of the house, go from there. Man cave stuff, she shed, that kind of stuff. It's huge. There's going to be something there that's going to be simple, text-based design, funny sayings, just like shirts that people will hang up in those rooms. The second thing you can do, AI generated art. Mm-hmm. I don't know, there's so many gray areas right now when it comes to copyright and that kind of stuff that I think will just it's going to develop as it develops, since this whole thing is so new and in its infancy is in terms of its availability to us as a consumer base to then do what we want with those designs. So, you can do patterns, different patterns. You can do characters, add text later. There's tons of stuff, Travis, that people can do from an AI standpoint with this idea.
Right. And we're going to talk more about some specific AI sites that we're going to give you some resources towards the end. So hang around toward the end. And I found a couple of really cool options for you to do some of this AI generated stuff, as well as our third, where can I get the art answer? And that's public domain art.
Yep.
I'm going to share with you a site or two later that I actually shared, I think, in the Facebook group months and months ago, probably 6+ months ago. Facebook group. If you're not a member, just go to printondemandcast.com/Facebook. If you want to join that group, every once in a while, we'll throw some cool things out there and people are hanging out, answering each other's questions and talking in there. So, but public domain, you would not, I told Josiah before we started this, that the Mona Lisa is public domain. Did you know that? That's great. It's under the Creative Commons license.
No idea.
Yeah. So, there are so many different things you can do with public domain art.
Yeah.
And, your mileage may vary. There may be a million other people already doing this and you're just, late to the party. But inevitably there are some sales to be had in the public domain art arena.
Yeah, for sure. I knew a guy that was doing, wall art posters just on public domain movie posters, like old stuff, from the 30s, 40s, like the silent films, and that have now gone into public domain. And so there's so much. Again, we're going to give you a site here, towards the end, a resource you can go and literally search and see if this thing is, if what you're looking for is going to be public domain. So stay tuned again for that resource. So the next question you might ask is, do we do posters? Do we do framed art? And I think the best way to approach this would be to think about that ideal customer for you, right? Totally. Is it going to be like my mom, and for her kitchen, she'd probably prefer framed art. She's not going to want to put a poster in her kitchen. Is it going to be a college dorm kid that's looking to fill space? I can't tell you the number of arbitrary posters I had in my dorm room in college. Why? Because I just wanted something on the wall. Really, that was it. So, first-time homeowners, middle-aged men or women with disposable income, I think that, is it dinks, dual income, no kids, those folks that are just looking at like, what do they want? And that's kind of putting yourself, and again, we talk about kind of, I guess, profiling or figuring out your ideal avatar who walks through your door that you're going to want to sell to. Who's that perfect person that can usually help you determine what you want to do, a poster or a framed art. Might be design dependent too.
Sure. Yeah, I think this is kind of print on demand store building 101. If you want to build a successful store on Etsy or wherever, on Shopify, it's not so much maybe on Amazon or Walmart, because those are more specifically product based searches. But if you want to find something, if you want to get somebody into your store, you need to know who that person is. You can have an everything store, but you're going to get minimal traction with that type of, that type of strategy. So yeah, I mean, and here's a hint. You might want to think about targeting people that have money, the disposable income. Yeah. The disposable income thing is actually pretty good idea, because their income is disposable. So they don't need it as much as somebody else. So they can afford to, buy that Mona Lisa and hang it over their, fireplace.
Yep.
In their Breckenridge mansion.
Yeah, exactly. In their Jackson Hole summer home or winter home that they only live in. So yeah, for sure. Target that.
Yep.
And again, you want to think about margins, not Marsha, margins. So find a product that you want to sell and find at least 5 of that same product on the channel that you're wanting to sell on, like Etsy. And then compare pricing. And then rinse and repeat until you find a winner. I mean, Travis, dig in a little bit more to that if there's any kind of minutia of that process, but wanting to find, searching and making sure that what you're wanting to sell is actually A, there, B, and in demand, and 3, how much are you going to charge for it?
Yeah. I think, when you're just, this whole thing is talking about, well, what should I sell? Posters or framed art? Well, let's look at the margins. Let's decide based on what those margins are, and so the best way to do that is see what your competition's doing. Don't forget to check on shipping. Don't just use whatever your vendor is saying. Well, it costs this much to buy this product. And you're like, wow, these guys are charging $40. I can get it for $15. Well, you forgot about the $20 shipping, or whatever. And so make sure you get that shipping in there. But I would straight up open up a Google Doc or a Google Sheet and make some link, just click some links and put some columns, for price and for shipping and all of that stuff. And then go through and, for sizes too, because different, not only do different print on demand companies offer different sizes, you don't necessarily know who these sellers are using. And sometimes you're going to find, oh my gosh, these guys are selling for nothing. And that might be because they've got a freaking canvas photo printer in their garage and they're doing, or they are an actual shop and they're doing what we used to do with the UV or the DTG signs or the, laser engraved signs or what, all of those types or the sublimated signs. We could charge a lot less because we were doing it all ourselves. So you're not paying that middleman, which, a lot of our audience is going to be doing. So you need to, first of all, don't get discouraged if you see cheap prices, because you're also going to see winners that aren't cheap. Try to figure out what the difference is. Look at the different mock-ups, look at the different store aesthetics, look at all that stuff. Keep track of that. Look through all of that stuff and make a good decision. What should your margins be? Well, that's honestly up to you. I like between, when you're doing a print on demand kind of drop ship model, I like between, 30 and 40%, 25 at the lowest, because you are going to have some expenses and you're also probably, unfortunately, going to have some returns. That just happens with products, so there is a learning curve here. But just make sure your margins are where they need to be. And that, to your point, Josiah, there's actually a demand for this type of product before you decide posters, canvas art, framed art, whatever your particular print on demand vendor of choice offers in this wall art category, I guess.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So we want to give you guys some resources, as we mentioned. And so, one of the first resources that we have, and all these are going to be in the show notes as well, just so you guys are, have ease of access to them. But the first one is patterned.ai. And Travis, you mentioned this one cool. earlier about the AI that can help you generate patterns or characters or what have you, So tell us a little bit about the functionality of this and why it would be such a great resource for those that are listening.
Yeah, patterned.ai is they use a credit system. And so you can obviously generate your own patterns, but they also have a gallery that's already available of patterns And all of these are commercially, you can use them in your commercial business. So there's no, copyright necessarily on these. And so if you go to their gallery, you can search for an image, and then you come to their, that particular page, and if the super small PNG is free, but then you spend credits to get larger PNGs, or for 5 credits, you can convert it to an SVG, which is a vector image, which means it can be as large as you need it to be for whatever piece of art you are putting this particular product on. So that there is a price to it. I think they give you like 20 credits to start off, something like that. But then if you decide to, you want to do this all the time, you can like pay like $10 a month and you get like 300 credits. Okay. So maybe that'll be enough for you. $30 a month, you get 2,000 credits. Again, all of this stuff's royalty free. And it's super amazing.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool. You use these credits to download this stuff, and then you can put it on not only wall art. I mean, you could, if you got an SVG, you could design wallpaper, you print on demand wallpaper, print on demand blankets, shower curtains, all the things we talk about all the time. And then if you wanted to, even take that pattern and then give it to your artist and have them put some type of text-based design in the middle of it or something, if you want, I mean, there's just so many options with that. But yeah, I think Pattern AI is a really, really cool site. If you're talking about, doing some of the things we've been talking about on the show.
Yeah. The next 2 are going to be resources for public domain that we talked about. Artv.com and then rawpixel.com/public-domain. Again, all in the show notes. So don't worry about having to write any of this down. It's going to be there for you. But both of these are kind of search engines for public domain to see what is out there for you to put on signs, wall by famous artists that you're looking for, certain subject matter you're looking for. These are the websites you can use to basically find what's there and then utilize it in your designs that you're selling.
Yeah, the art fee is going to get a large enough image to probably use in a wall art that's any decent size, except for like maybe a 6x6 or a 10x10. You're going to have to pay for ArtV Pro. And that's ARTVEE again in the show notes for you. But it has just a ton of options. And then, but the raw pixel one is the one I posted months ago in our Facebook group. This one, you can download massive JPEGs, like over 10,000 pixels on a side at 300 DPI for free. So that can make a lot of different, art projects for you, different wall art sizes. And so remember, when you're doing wall art, particularly if you're going to do the canvas wrap, that image has to wrap around. So it actually has to be bigger than the 20x20 or the 24x16 or whatever. It has to be wider. At a 300, I would recommend a 300 DPI resolution, so it can wrap around and staple to the back of that sign or that wall art. So remember that when you're doing it. But man, that raw pixel place is all of this stuff, man. It's just nuts how much free art is available to you to use in print on demand. It blows my mind. Tell you what.
Yeah, and those of you that are watching on YouTube, I was showing the raw pixel site right now and public domain, and it's the Apollo moon landing is one of the topics, or some you can see here. If you're watching, these are really cool images that are available for you. And the moon landing, I think you could do a lot of signage with those types of things. The one like the American flag and the astronaut. This one's kind of classic, and so that's at your disposal that you can use to make designs and create this for yourself. So definitely look into that as well. The last 2 resources that we have are really going to be places that you can find or partner with to fulfill the products that you're using and see what their catalogs have available. It's awkwardstyles.com and printify.com. Both have options for wall art that you can sell in your store.
Yeah, and there's so many more. I mean, we just threw a couple of these out there. Some are better. In my opinion, when I was kind of looking through this, doing a little research, I think the Printify website or, their products, they give you more information about them, at least from what I could originally find out. I didn't dig in specifically to see which had better margins, for print plus shipping. I did notice though that they have totally different sizes.
Yeah.
Like Awkward Style has a 20 by 20. So if you wanted a square thing, 20 by 20, you could do that. But I could not find a 20 by 20 on Printify. Now I didn't look exhaustively. But again, I think we talked about in a recent show that you can use multiple people to fulfill your products, guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But at the same time, I do want to say I would highly recommend you do not sell every size different, every different size. Those are the words that I needed to put together. It'll lead to like paralysis analysis and all that stuff, like for your customer, they just won't be able to, choose 5-6 sizes, maybe show them over, on a wall, over a couch or something, so people can get an idea of scale, and make sure you link up your sizes to that picture. Like when I click the 20 by 20, I should go to a picture of a, some type of reference with a 20 by 20 in the picture. That's going to create much better conversions for you when they finally do land on your page.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, really what we're saying here when it comes to wall art is there's money to be made. So look into it, investigate, dig in. Again, if you are doing this already, let us know how it's going, your approach, any tips, tricks, anything like that. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you and your experience and what made you want to start doing that in the first place. So we're going to wrap up this episode of the Print on Demand cast. That's all we have for the main event. However, again, if you guys aren't already signed up, do yourself a favor, do us a favor. Go to printondemandcast.com/VIP and sign up for the newsletter. It's once a week. We're not going to spam you. We're not going to bug you. We're not going to irritate you. We're just giving you additional tips and tricks and information that will help you succeed in your business, and a bonus dad joke, right? And a design calendar, which is a free download when you subscribe. So if you haven't already, do that. That design calendar is so handy when you're looking at what's coming up in the year, what you should be designing for, what you should be selling, what should be putting on these wall art pieces or these t-shirts or your mugs or what have you. This helps you kind of stay ahead of that game, so you're not reactionary, you're preemptive, and you're just making sure that everything is set and running smoothly. So again, printondemandcast.com/VIP to sign up for that. Travis, any other thing you want to say about the VIP email that we send out each and every week?
Yeah. If you didn't get your design calendar, maybe you signed up through Facebook and it didn't come, just reply to the next email you get. I did notice, I had some people tell me that some of that stuff was going in spam, and we don't like spam.
The meat or the email.
Yeah. So just check your spam, so you can actually, when you get an email, just reply and say, hey, I didn't get my design calendar. We'll send you a link and you'll have it.
Yep. And if it is in your spam folder, do us a favor as well. You can actually mark and tell your email host, what have you, that this is not spam. Whatever's coming from this email address is not spam. It's actually very, very informative and an extra dad joke, and they'll let it go through. So just be sure to click that one button and tell all of those things to them in the subtext. So thank you guys so much for listening. We are so grateful for each and every one of you, and we're excited to be back next week with brand new information for you about all things print on demand. But until then, for Travis, I'm Josiah. We'll see you next week right here on the Print on Demand cast.
See ya.
Hey, babe. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. We hope you enjoyed the Totally Tubular Show. If you've got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Want to be wicked nice? Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next time, for sure.